What's up, old school homies? Let's talk about, is jazz dead? I've already made another video. Is classical music dead? Alright, here's my take on both of those subjects. It's pretty much the same, it's just more exaggerated for classical than it is for jazz. Once you have too much history, then you kind of lean towards history for inspiration because there's gonna be a rise and a fall, and that's how everything kind of works. If there's a rise and a fall, sometimes you look to the peak. So, some people would say that jazz has a peak in bebop. Bebop would be more of a upbeat type of jazz with more complicated scales, and it's not like as easy to dance to. It's not like a dancing type of jazz. It's more like for the jazz musician, like really complicated for the sake of showing off the most that you could do. And there are people that still recreate a lot of that bebop stuff, and it's cool. I'm not saying I listen to it or anything, but there is a camp of people in the whole bebop camp, and what they're about is that is when the renaissance of jazz was. Other people say that all jazz was good and some good jazz is still coming out. I'm pretty sure it is. In the case of classical, it's a little bit more difficult for new classical to come out. I noticed a lot of the same pieces getting played over and over, going to different orchestras. Jazz, yeah, a lot of the same pieces are being used because there's so much jazz that already came out. I used to go to see these two guys, the Smooth Brothers. They're wonderful. There was two of them, but there was a bass player and a piano player, and then it turned into a piano player and a guitar player, I think. Those guys could play 1,000 different songs like a jukebox. So I think learning jazz would be knowing all of it and then making up your own jazz, because a lot of the paths have been taken. Like, a lot of the songs would be better if somebody knew the song than you making up a song that no one's ever heard of. How would you break through into a category that's somewhat of a not a mainstream category anymore, I hate to say it, but classical or jazz is not going to have the same kind of pull in all areas. There's certain areas where jazz is more popular, like in the South. I don't know in California if anybody cares about jazz. I'll tell you about my experience. I worked at a place that did jazz music, and all right, here's what my boss said. He came in. Jazz is dead. Jazz sucks. We fired all the jazz musicians, and I was so disturbed. I was like, no, 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 no. Because that was all we had. Jazz, it was wonderful. I could just at least have some music. And we hired him back. Okay, let's put it that way. I'm not going to tell the whole story. We hired him right back because we lost everybody as soon as they left. So is jazz dead? No, but you don't have to pay him very much. That was the shitty part, is that they found other work to do once we told them to fuck off. And it was harder to get him back. And that's what I said. It kind of turned into like the bass player. I don't know what happened to him, but he was great. I loved watching that bass player. He was an inspirational four string jazz bass player. So I would like to at least do some jazz scaling on my guitar because I like the way it sounds.